infuriating how delicious queerness is. So therefore, queerness is about confusing patriarchy. Queerness is about saying Sindoor can be a floating signifier, Shakapola can be a floating signifier, speaking in a low voice can be a small floating signifier. So therefore, I think, and I will definitely start taking questions now. So when you read your Butler, please always remember that their politics is primarily the politics of confusion. It is the politics of confusion. I am going to confuse you to such an extent that you won't know how to combat me. Queer politics is the guerrilla warfare. It is where you are waging war against patriarchy, but patriarchy does not know how to combat you because the way in which you are waging war is so confusing. Patriarchy does not know whether to support you or to attack you. And I'm going to end finally by actually drawing your attention to the oblique with which I started, and these are going to be my final remarks. Oblique. That. Yes? Patriarchy is simple, it is straight. Oblique. So therefore, the oblique is a very peculiar position. It is at one and the same time close to patriarchy and away from it. At one and the same time, it is close to patriarchy and away from it. So therefore, you don't know. You don't know. You see? So therefore, when you are, so it is a kind of an equivocation, isn't it? So therefore, you don't know whether patriarchy does not know whether you're opposing patriarchy or whether you're supporting patriarchy. Because you're doing two things, two completely different things at one and the same time. So I can't tell the two apart. You have that in Homi Ke Bhabha's theory, mimicry. So therefore, mimicry is you are confused, So therefore, I don't know whether you do that at this institution or not, but at Kolani for farewell, this was the best opportunity that the students had to mimic their teachers. The best possible opportunity. Now, I belong to a very, very sad group of teachers because nobody has ever mimicked me. It's something. It's a pain in my life, and I shed tears in darkness. Because nobody has ever mimicked me. I live for the day when somebody, I must be very easy to mimic, but nobody's done it. But there are other teachers who are mimicked. Lovely, lucky them. But the thing is that when the student is mimicking the teacher, please understand what a difficult position the teacher is in, because the teacher is not sure whether the mimicry is happening because the student loves the teacher or because the student hates the teacher. You cannot tell. Because if you tell the student, to which the student is going to say, I mimicked you because I love you. You can't tell. So therefore, queer politics is constantly telling patriarchy, we love you. Patriarchy is confused. And that is where queer politics is post-structuralist and different. Thank you. Yes, question. Oh, yes.
Gender intelligibility.
No, so therefore gender intelligibility is just, so basically how is gender intelligible? The simple answer is, it isn't. But what patriarchy does is patriarchy is going to constantly try to produce an intelligibility of gender. So therefore, patriarchy will constantly want you to exhibit the signs through which your gender becomes intelligible. And so therefore, what ultimately happens is that gendered intelligibility, so therefore we begin to understand gender as language, because I don't know what you're saying because you're unintelligible. So therefore gender is language. Gender is language. See, we are again going back to post-structuralism. The whole turn from the body to language, this is what it is. So therefore, if gender intelligibility is what we are talking about, so therefore intelligibility, therefore gender is language. So if gender is language, there are two kinds of language. One is the kind of language that we all agree with because we have assumed that we know the meaning of those words, and that is the language that we are going to use. That is performativity. That is performativity. So when Butler talks about performativity, this is what Butler is saying. Butler is basically saying that gender, there is nothing anatomical about gender. There is nothing biological about gender. There is nothing somatic about gender. Gender is simply a performance. But there is a difference between performance and performativity. Performance is that performance which is voluntary. I want to play the role of King Lear. I am choosing to play the role of King Lear. That is a performance. But when Butler is talking about performativity, that is a performance which is compulsory. A performance where you don't have a choice. If you have been, if your body has a vagina, you must wear a sari. And there's no way out. Because if you wear a jeans, I'm going to say, "Oi dekho feminist jacche." So therefore, performativity is a performance which is compulsory. Performance is that which is optional, that which is voluntary. So therefore, gender intelligibility is the way in which we recognize gender, the way in which we read gender. But then that reading is also, as I'm sure you've realized by now, patriarchal. Because our reading is patriarchal because the language of gender that we are used to using, that is patriarchal as well. And why is it patriarchal? Because it depends upon stability of meaning. It depends upon the stability of meaning. So therefore, something that we must remember is that the penis or the vagina, we must learn to stop talking about the penis as male genitalia. We must stop talking about the vagina as female genitalia. Please let me state once and for all, the penis does not have sex or gender. The vagina does not have sex or gender. So therefore, the sex or the gender of the penis or the vagina depends on the body on which it appears. So you can be a trans woman, and if you're a trans woman and if you say that you are a woman, and if you have retained your penis and your testes, then the penis becomes a female organ. If you are a trans man and if you have retained your ovaries, if you retained your vagina, then that vagina belongs to a man. So then the vagina becomes a male organ. So therefore, I hope that we are never going to make the mistake again of thinking about the penis as male or vagina as female. They are genderless. They only acquire the gender of the body to which they are attached. So just as nobody is born a Hindu, nobody is born a doctor, nobody is born an Indian, in a similar way, nobody is born male, nobody is born female. So, that's it. Yeah.
If you could touch upon connectivity, the portion on connectivity and divorce.
So there are, that is something that they can read up on themselves. And also, mind you, I don't know whether you are aware of it or not, but all of this is explained in great detail on YouTube. So therefore, please watch the videos, and then if you still have any problems, you can get. You've already, yeah. Well, I mean, there are 9 videos, so therefore, I have made 3.